It's not just mine, his or her house. This is our house.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tyrone Lowe. I'm your host. The show is called The Legends. I want to thank everybody all over the world that actually subscribes to the show and show love. I also have my co-host, Ray Pinky Velazquez, in the house. And we have a special guest, man. This guy's a legend. He's been around for a very long time, and he's going to be sharing some of his stuff today. So here we go. I bring you to the stage, Arthur Baker.
Hey,
What's
man.
going on, Arthur?
Good morning from sunny Miami.
Hey, Arthur, what's going on?
Hey, Pinky, it's been a while, man. Back in those Vanguard days, dude.
So what we're going to do, what we're going to do is we're going to take you way back, Arthur. How do you actually got involved with music? Was it a childhood thing? Were you influenced by someone or things of that nature?
Yeah, I mean, I got involved with music just being around in the '60s, man. I lived in Boston. There was a great radio station called WILD. Shout out to Sonny Joe White, who's the program director. He used to play amazing music, and I got turned on to soul and disco from ILD and also WBCN in Boston. You would hear things like, obviously, a big moment for me was hearing the Norman Whitfield production of Papa Was a Rolling Stone by the Temps. That was sort of a game changer when I heard that. But, other things like Joe Simon, Drowning in the Sea of Love. There were just all these records that turned me on. Otis Redding, Dock of the Bay, Sly and the Family Stone, all these groups that made me want to make music. I mean, Papa Was a Rolling Stone and Norman Whitfield, they were the game changers. But obviously, Sly was a big part of it also.
Okay. So you incorporated in a lot of labels that I see. You did a lot of production, and the most memorable one that I actually remember, I used to go up there every Friday and pick up, man, or the Streetwise records. So you guys that were DJs back in those days, I know you guys were really familiar with this label. So Arthur, let's talk about how you actually got started with that.
Well, I had moved to New York. I had done some records for Tommy Boy, a few, Jazzy Sensation and Planet Rock. And then after Planet Rock, I said I should do my own label. And I had a friend from college, Paul McCraven, who I bumped into on the F train. And he said, "Oh, yo, you should do your own label," because he knew about the success. So we started, Streetwise was born on the F train, actually.
Wow, that's amazing.
And then, the first, I used to go to Music Factory in Brooklyn and downtown Brooklyn on Fulton Street. And I met Donnie and Dwight, who later became Rocker's Revenge. So we did a few records before.
Mm-hmm.
Walking on Sunshine. I did Ease Your Mind by Touchdown. I would go to Paradise Garage, listen to what Larry was playing, and sort of make my records in the beginning sort of directed towards what he was playing. So Walking on Sunshine and also like Ease Your Mind, I heard that as an import. And I got the info, called them up, did a couple of remixes on that, and that sort of got the label going. And then, basically from there, IOU and obviously we did New Order Confusion. And then I had friends from Boston, Maurice Starr and Michael Johnson, who I'd been hanging with in Boston. When when I moved to New York, I said, "You got a place to stay anytime you're here, you can crash here or whatever." And Maurice took me up on it. He came down, he was staying at the house, and he came back from a day of meeting with record companies, and he said, I said, what's wrong? Because he looked really depressed, which Maurice never was depressed like that. And he said, "Well, I got this record and I'm trying to get a deal. And I saw Sylvia Robinson and I saw Sylvia Roan and no one wants to pick it up." I said, "Well, I got a label. Why don't you play it for me?" And he put it on the set. It was Candy Girl. I said, "You ain't leaving this apartment until you and that's how it went. And Paul, my partner, went to Boston and met with the parents of the kids, and the next thing was we were finishing the Candy Girl album.
Wow.
And that
Now, that's
obviously
awesome.
up.
That's awesome. Arthur, let me ask you a question. Because back in the day, you know, when the disco stuff was booming, you had Casablanca, you had uh, TK Records kind of leading the path with all the disco stuff. And then Tommy Boy came in 1981. Tom Silverman started the company with a little loan from his parents back in 81. And then you came in 1982 with Streetwise. But let me ask you a question. What, even though you had an inner passion to start this, you knew that there was a part of the market that you can capitalize, that perhaps the disco market was not pinpointing. And I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure that you felt that burning passion inside, and you said, I'm gonna do this, you know, because I feel comfortable, especially with Tom, you know, with Tom Silverman doing what he was doing. You know, you felt very, uh, you know, inclined to start your label. What was that inner passion? What drove you to say, I'm gonna do this?
Well, I loved music, and I thought I had good taste, and I thought I could bring something unique to a label that was, when we made Streetwise, we weren't thinking of it being like just a street label, even though it was called Streetwise. I was thinking of it developing a label more like an Arista, something like that. So
Right.
you saw the signings we made weren't like typical at all. You know, we did, at one point we had Dr. John on the label, we had Eartha Kitt on the label.
Yes.
We had New Order on the
Yeah.
label, and we had,
Yeah.
and Dominatrix. So we did.
Yeah.
We were trying to make a label that was, I signed the first Def Jam record. It's Yours came out through my label, Party Time. So I had big dreams about setting up a label, and Tom, Tommy Boy inspired me because I saw he launched a label on two of my records, on Jazzy Sensation and Planet Rock. I figured I could do the same, and I did. I lost focus, did way too much cocaine, and I wasn't able to sort of follow through in the way that Tom did. Tom had Monica Lynch. He had like a great team, and he just was a better businessman than me. I was more just a crazy creative person,
Yeah. You know, it's funny you mentioned Monica Lynch. I remember when I was back at Vanguard, she had called me when we had released Twilight 22,
Yeah,
Electric Kingdom,
yeah.
and she says, Ray, hey, you know, that's our record, you know,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
because
Well.
they had the same rhythm track and everything. So, we had a fun call.
Well,
Uh,
they thought that, and to the extent that that was sort of the Tommy Boy sound. It was, sort of my sound, Tommy Boy sound, me and Roby, and but what was interesting when Michael Johnson brought Pac Jam, or Pac Man as it was first called, to me, I said, oh, bring that to Tom. That's like a Tom record. So I did. I actually did do that, and probably stupidly, because it did very well. I should have had it on the label, but
right.
as I said, I wasn't a great businessman. Much better
Yeah.
music person.
Yeah, you're more on the creative side. Yeah, making things happen. Yeah.
Yep.
So Arthur, who's your the DJ that actually inspired you to actually say, well, you know what, I want to gain the experience and also the energy to put myself out there.
Well, I mean, living in Boston, I discovered disco in Boston, and there were many, many DJs in Boston who inspired me. I mean, John Luongo, who I would consider a mentor, he was a mentor, but then there was, because he was doing not just DJing, he had his magazine Nightfall. He started remixing tracks, and Dana Jacovitis, Jimmy Stewart, and then, people like Cosmo Wyatt and Joey Carvello.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of great DJs in Boston, and obviously they all inspired me, but not as a DJ, as a producer. Like, I was not a good DJ, and I could see, to be a DJ, you need patience. That's like one of the main things, and you need to be able to focus. You need to go through records, find out where the mix points are. You know, it takes a lot of work. I was more from day one. I wanted to make records and not play records, even though playing records was a way to get in the door. You know.
You know, it's funny how you say that, Arthur, because you know it's true. We're all on a path, and we're all trying to find the next level in what we're trying to do. And for you, DJing was something that perhaps you were inclined to do because you knew a lot of the music. You were inspired by a lot of people around you. You mentioned John Luongo. You mentioned Calvin Wyatt, Joey Carvello. You know, so you had that inspiration around you. So you wanted to give it a shot behind the turntables and feed off that energy. And you realized that it wasn't clicking. It was probably getting you a
Well,
little
no,
bit more upset.
it wasn't that it wasn't clicking. Well, first of all, I didn't ever get a good DJ gig, so I was playing places
Okay.
like Sadie's in Framingham. You know, like
Yeah.
mafia. You know, dinner clubs in Boston. So
Right.
that I wasn't. You know, but I mean, the bottom line is, to me, it seemed more realistic that I could actually talk someone into giving me some studio time and make a record,
Right.
which was Losing You, the Hearts of Stone, which I actually sent to Vanguard. I have a nice letter from Vanguard saying thanks but no thanks, and but at least they got a letter back to me. But basically, yeah, I thought that with producing, all you had to do is talk one person into opening the door to studio, and that's what I did in Boston at Intermedia Studio. So I was able to get in there, make a record, and when John, I brought I brought Cosmo and Joey and John in to remix Hearts of Stone. So Losing You, that was the second record John Luongo did a remix of. He did one other before that. He was the only guy and it was an unforgettable track, right? So when I brought him into the studio the first time, it was like I had the vision, I think, to see that he was going to be good at that, because I thought he was a great DJ, and from there, then it took off, and then I think This Time Baby, Jackie Moore, and then
Yeah.
he did North End. When he did North End Kind of Life, he had already sort of made it, but Losing You, Hearts of Stone, that was definitely he hadn't made it yet, and the mix is pretty good. But I'm just saying, from day one, that was like '78, man. So I was like 23 and putting out records and following that course. When I moved to New York, people think, "Oh, where did you DJ when you moved to New York?" I didn't DJ in New York ever. Literally, never DJed in New York. I came to New York, wrote for Dance Music Report, and worked in a Cardinal distributor in Long Island City. So I did all that stuff and just wanted to make records, So
uh, Tom Silverman was, he started his label based on the inspiration he got from, the Dance Music Report that he was actually, doing monthly, the newsletter.
much
So,
like much like how Luongo did his thing, he had nice.
yeah, yeah,
I think Tom knew John, and he had been in Boston. I think he got his he might have got that inspiration from John. I never asked him, but I would guess that could have been possible.
yeah.
Okay.
Um,
Arthur, let's talk about, it was the music then. So how do you feel about the fidelity of the music that's going on now because of the integration of different genres? What would be your take on that?
Well, I mean, there's so much music coming out. I mean, I don't see how it's possible to get your head around the music that comes out now. It's like basically there's great music coming out, but there's so much music coming out. There's so much shit too that
Yeah.
I don't. Well, I mean, there's so much music, man. If you listen, there's so much music coming out now. I mean, I have a radio show, and I try to play on Sirius XM, Studio 54 radio. I try to play one or two new tracks. I mean, it's basically my show's looking back, but I do try to look forward and and play new stuff. But it's hard to find it. I mean, I get sent stuff, by everybody. Bobby Shaw sends me stuff, and a lot of the places like, from the UK. But, I really could use someone who would sort of go through it all and sort of do a sort of suggestion box, because literally, how can you even, I don't have time enough to actually listen to a lot of music. The thing is, when I go out, I'm always Shazamming. So, I mean, if I like something, I Shazam it, and then I go try to find it. And usually it's been something I was sent like a year ago that I never opened up, So it's sort of, you can either do one thing or the other. If you really want to DJ nowadays and play current music, you need someone to help find the music, because it's definitely a full-time job. There's no way you can do it on your own if you're doing anything else. So that, I mean, DJing now, I mean, there's so many different genres now. I mean, when I DJ once a month at Dante's in Miami, and I'm playing vinyl, so obviously I play 95% old stuff, but I'll play salsa, I play reggae, I'll play it all. Right. But that's from the past, to be up to date on new stuff, it would be really impossible. For me, at this point.
Okay.
And there's a lot of it. There's tons of it. What's unfortunate. What's unfortunate, Arthur, is and Tyrone. It's there's so much stuff today, and these artists are coming. And it's a global phenomenon. It's just there are records coming out from all over the globe. And
but Pinky, they're all, even when disco started, it was Italy, it was France, it was Africa. There were, but obviously there weren't hundreds and thousands a week. To me, what was really important about disco, which people don't talk about much, is that it was international music. And unlike rock and roll, it was either America or the UK. That was it. There was Italian rock, French rock, African rock. Yeah, there was some of it, but it really wasn't it wasn't really what was happening. In disco, from day one, it was Africa, it was France, it was Italy. And some of the best disco records were made outside of the US. I mean, Canada also. So I find it that it's always, dance music has always been international. Now it's even more so, and because people have all the same equipment, the same skills with programming and stuff. So I think it definitely makes it interesting that it's so international, and you can smash genres because you could just sample and put shit together. So it's an exciting time to be able to make music. It's just not an exciting time to find it, because it's just so much of it,
Yeah.
Right. The marketing strategy has changed since you actually were back in the days doing your thing. Can you tell the viewers about that?
Well, I mean, they know about that. They're listening to this podcast. It's literally, it's social media, man. In your phone, you have more power than 10 studios from back in the 70s. So basically, it's all in your hands. People can start a label. They can put something up on YouTube. They can create a buzz like immediately. It's a whole new world, and the people who know how to navigate it are the ones who are winning, even obviously politically too, because the people who navigate social media are now in the White House. So it's sort of it's a strange time, but it's all about social media and the internet, which the information highway, or the misinformation highway, maybe, but whatever.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some current events. Ray, you got something you have to say?
Very quickly, Arthur. Going back, because Streetwise also had a London division, and I know that even Tom Silverman, has signed Information Society, and you had New Order and John Roca, the lead singer, and you had Dominatrix. Back in the UK, what was the exciting movement going on that was kind of making you reach for some of these artists and bringing them on board?
Well, I would say I was always a fan of Brit Funk, which which started. Well, I mean, groups like Imagination and Eye Level, and they were in the 70s. There, I mean, look at Rod Temperton and Heatwave. Rod Temperton is probably the most influential British person in pop music, other than sort of the Beatles or something. He wrote so many of the Michael Jackson thing. I mean, Quincy listened to Heatwave and thought, "Wow, this is the sound. I want this sound from Michael Jackson," right? And then Rod Temperton moved to L.A. and wrote "Rock with You." He wrote so many Thriller. I mean, so you could make an argument that Brit Funk actually created the sound of Michael Jackson and Thriller and all that, because literally before Quincy discovered Rod Temperton and Heatwave, I mean, look, also Give Me the Night, all that stuff, Rod Temperton wrote it. So Americans are always quick to not understand the validity of other cultures, man. And I would say I was a fan of Heatwave when I was working in a record shop in Boston, and when Always and Forever came out and Boogie Nights and all that. That was in the 70s. So that was sort of right around the time of disco, when that was probably 77, 78. So when you think that literally that group that had a few hits but wasn't thought of as a mega group, there was Junior and there was like Second Image. There was so many groups in the UK, but Rod Temperton, I could make a really good case for saying Rod Temperton, as I said, was probably one of the most important British musicians ever, because he wrote all those Michael Jackson songs, and people don't sort of ignore that. So I was listening to that. I used to get a magazine called Black Music that literally in the UK, they took black music seriously, and they had magazines called Black Music. And literally that was in the 70s. And I followed it every week. I'd go and get a copy in Cambridge and Harvard Square, get my copy. I used to write letters to the editor. Actually, I had one of my letters printed, and I won a Black Music t-shirt. So, I mean, but the bottom line is I saw that, and I wanted to make music that would resonate in the UK. And what happened with that was, we put out Walking on Sunshine, and Tracy Bennett from London Records heard it and was like, I want to sign the record. So, and then after that, it was that, and then Candy Girl was #1 in the UK. So, and then once I had success in the UK groups started to come to me, be it New Order, Freeze, those were, and also the production, even the electro production of someone like Depeche Mode or Yazoo, Vince Clarke. He influenced me, when I did IOU and also like Cheap Thrills and stuff like that. We were listening to Don't Go and Situation. It was a give and take. We'd listen to them, they listened to us, so there was we were feeding back and forth.
Yeah.
Situation is something that actually turned me out one night when I was at the Paradise Garage when Larry played it. I believe that Francois was playing that night, and he came on with that record, man. I was totally blown away.
Well, he did a remix of Situation, and John.
Yeah, he played the dub. He played the dub.
And John Roby played some keys on that. On the, I don't know if that was the version you would have heard. But.
It was actually a dub version. It was actually a dub version. It wasn't actually the radio play.
Yeah,
but
it was Francois' mix, I would guess.
Right. Yeah. So, but let's talk about some current events. What is Arthur Baker doing these days, and what are you going to do? Tell the viewers about some of the stuff that you're getting ready to get involved with.
I got plenty on board. I wrote my memoirs, which are coming out in May through Faber and Faber, a UK publisher, really good publisher. They just put out Eno's book. They put out a lot of books. So I'm excited about that. That's going to be out at May 22nd in Europe. We probably won't be releasing it here till around Christmas time. So it's called Looking for the Perfect Beat is the name of the book. And so I got that. I directed a film on Rocco's Revenge called On a Mission. And that's sort of in the process of finishing the score, which Matt Quayle, who used to be great keyboardist who played on a lot of my records and New Order records and Latin Rascal stuff back in the day. He's doing some score on that. And then I guess the biggest thing is I'm taking Beat Street to Broadway. We're doing a Beat Street the musical, and I've got
Oh wow, that's amazing.
Michael Holman is one of my partners, and also the great rapper Nas. He's a co-producer on the musical, and we just signed Christopher Diaz, who wrote Hell's Kitchen with Alicia Keys. We've got him writing the script, the book. So that's another 2 years away, but that's sort of obviously something that's super exciting. Me and Michael have been working on that shit for 8 years. So
wow,
yeah,
it's a long time.
Yeah, and there's that, and I'm still making music. You know, I've done a really cool record with Jose Parla, the graffiti artist. He does some poetry. We've done some really great salsa tracks and Afro salsa stuff, and that should be coming out in this year, along with a bunch of compilations. Got a track with Ali Love coming out on my label. Yeah, I'm always throwing stuff out there, and I've got my radio show, so that it all keeps me busy.
Arthur, who owns the Streetwise catalog now? Is that
these people called Phase One Communication?
Phase
One lack of communication, you could say.
Okay.
I know Streetwise had closed back in '86, I think.
No, it didn't. No. I made a deal with a deal with Morris Levy, which was obviously a crazy, stupid idea, which didn't work out.
Okay.
And he ended up getting the catalog, and it's been sort of a bummer, but you got to move on. Luckily, some of the stuff we got back, and obviously all the Freeze and John Rocket stuff is owned by Beggar's Banquet. So I have a good rapport with them. They're good people.
Okay. I got to ask you a question.
I know that Tommy Boy sold their catalog for about $100 million.
Yeah, he sold it a few times. As I said, Tom was a much better businessman than me. So
yeah.
Okay. My question to you, Arthur, is there's a lot of artists that's coming out today, DJs, producers, things of that nature. Through your experiences, and you have a lot of experience through the years, what would you actually say to them?
Get someone who invests their money in you, and don't invest your own money in your career. It's a deep hole that you can get yourself into. I would say personally, the Streetwise situation was great for a time being, because I had people financing the label, but then when they thought they knew more about music than I did, and I sort of lost focus. But I mean, to me, one thing I'd suggest is do not be afraid of getting your music out there. And a lot of people work on things, keep working on it until all the soul is out of it. I say, if you're working on a track and you're a DJ, play it out, see the crowd reaction, which is what I always did, and it always really worked well for me. I mean, granted, I was able to bring rough mixes to Jelly Bean, and he'd play them at the Funhouse. But I'm just saying, a lot of guys work on things, and I go, "Oh, did you play it out?" "Oh, well, it's not done yet." I go, "Well, how do you know it's not done until you play it out?" Because when you play something out, you know if it's working or not. So to have it not use that as a testing ground is, to me, really pretty stupid. And a lot of people are afraid to do that. And to me, it's if you're making music, play it to people, let people hear it, because when you hear music through other people's ears, you know what's wrong and you know what's right.
Arthur, you mentioned something very important that really grabbed my attention right now, when you said that if you were giving advice to others, it's important to have others invest in you, in your talent, as compared to you yourself investing that money in yourself, and then realizing that you're being swarmed into so many directions that you kind of lose yourself. And so I think it's important that DJs today, producers today, actually develop their talent to the point that someone sees that talent and they see it as very invaluable and want to cushion that. So I think that was very important that you mentioned
Well,
that.
the other thing is get a manager. Even a bad manager is better than no manager, because literally, I've made mistakes by not having a manager for many years, and a manager is a sounding board, and basically doing this all on your own can get you get sort of insulated, and you really need that was I'd say the one major mistake I made was not really finding a manager and having that person. I mean, I've had managers, and some were good and some were bad, but even the bad ones, were better than not having a manager. A manager is, to me, it's, even if it's your friend, a lot of bands start out with their best friends who aren't good enough to play the music, so they end up managing, whether it was, people like Rob Gretton with New Order, Paul McGuinness with U2. There's many managers started off as just being friends of the band. But I would say it's super important, because you can go down a rabbit hole without a manager. You need someone to say, hey, the shit's done, or stop working on that, try something new. You need, in a way, a good manager is almost a producer of the artist and the producer. It's sort of someone who can sort of lead you through, those kind of times. So I would definitely, if you're a DJ, definitely, even if you're just starting out, and it may seem silly not to have a manager, but I would suggest it's super important. That's a super important thing.
Well, unfortunately, gentlemen, we're running out of time. So I want to thank you, Arthur, for being a part of this segment.
Man. Cheers to you guys.
And
cheers.
Ray, like always, man, I appreciate you.
Well,
Arthur, you have an extended invitation, man.
All right, cool.
Anytime.
When the book comes out, I'll give you a holler.
All right, that'd be great. And this has been another T-Lo video production, and you guys stay tuned for another episode.
It's not just mine, his or her house. This is our house.